What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another first look. Today, taking a look at the MJOLNIR Mark V re-edit. And this is by 1000 Toys. This is an action figure that's a 1/12 scale. And in case you're wondering what the actual Mark V armor is, this is the armor that you actually used in the original Halo Combat Evolved game. And I'm going to leave this picture up just for a second so you could take a look at it and kind of remember how blocky the game was when it came out on the Xbox all those years ago. This was the original time that we had seen the Master Chief armor, and something I didn't even notice until I took a deep dive of this new figure is that he actually has a utility belt around his waist. So we're going to get into that and some of the other distinguishing features of this. We'll come back to this in a minute. But this blog post, this is something I've been following for a while. Pre-orders are finally live. You could have potentially gotten an earlier one before, but they were officially announced today via the official Halo Twitter and then retweeted by the Halo Gear Store. They're finally ready to ship coming up. It says it will start shipping on July 22nd. That's not true. These things are not even out yet. Despite the fact that they gave a blog post on July 22nd and said they're ready, that they're not ready yet, but they will be soon. With any of these import figures, I think it's worth noting that there are always some delays in shipping. I think back to the figure I got from Play Arts, the Kai figure of Master Chief. I pre-ordered it, I think, a year in advance before I actually got it. So kind of doesn't surprise me that this is kind of the way that this works. And I'm not really familiar with this space in terms of how shipping normally works and how long things are announced, but I am very familiar with video games, which is why we're doing this video today. So they're showing you some nice pictures of the box and everything, but here's actually what the figure looks like. And I think this is a really, really cool stylization of the Master Chief. And what popped out to me first and foremost was how like flat and like polygon-esque they made everything, with very, very aggressive jagged lines around all the different pieces of his individual armor, his chest plate, definitely his visor, and you see a lot of really kind of hard edges. It's not smoothed over. Not that this figure was either. Keep in mind, a lot of people played Halo first person, not really looking at your own character, maybe just a little bit of the arm. Probably a little bit more multiplayer, where the animations were very stiff, though, in the multiplayer. Very low frame rate, very low resolution, and it was kind of hard to make out all these distinguishing features. What they've done here, since this is the, they're very, very important stating here, there's the re-edit. So it's a fresh look at this old armor. What they've really done here, I think, is really highlighted just some of the aggressive lines that they have. Now, some of the key features with this figure definitely are the black undersuit, which is thankfully making a return coming up in Halo Infinite. That's been a point of contention for a while. A lot of the variants of the Master Chief armor don't necessarily have a very pronounced black undersuit. This one does. You'll also notice that they've taken some extra time in really changing out this utility belt, which honestly, that's what I said at the beginning of this video. I wasn't even aware he had one, but he did. On the back here, kind of more the same, I guess, in the front. You'll notice that there's a lot less plating around his ankles and kind of the back of his legs. His kneecaps are definitely more exposed. His elbow joints are more exposed. The small of his back is also more exposed. This is probably more realistic for what I guess you would expect, assuming this was real space armor. The old ironclad that we see in some of the Halo games are awesome to look at, but it just doesn't make much sense from a functional standpoint. I feel like this armor the style of this armor has really done its best to make it kind of functional. I think it looks really, really cool. Moving on to the zoom in of the helmet, you could see a very, very aggressive visor. Again, that was somewhat of a trademark of the original one, although that one was a lot more domed. Over here, this is definitely more square. I like that the visor extends out so far, and it really kind of frames the face mask area, which doesn't have any detail on it. That's definitely true to form. You probably are more familiar with the newer helmet, where it has a lot of like diamonds and lines in here, particularly during the fight with Spartan Jameson lock in Halo 5 Guardians. If you remember, the Master Chief's helmet gets cracked during that fight, and there's a lot of detail there. Here it's very, very flat. Even his helmet is very, very flat with just a couple air vents on the side, not a lot of tubing or anything. That's pretty standard for the Mark V. On the other side over here, you see there's this black piece in the back, this kind of underpiece, which you can't really tell much from this picture, but I think is definitely, the other helmet has a little bit more fill in the back. This is kind of more cut out. And that makes sense based on the fact that when he leans his head back, again, kind of more on the functionality side, he wouldn't hit these kind of like shoulder gauntlets on the back. Nice close-up detail here. You could see the utility belt with these little pouches, which I can't really think what he would have ever used these for, but they're there. They went ahead and took a little bit of a different styling here, and they're more of a blue color rather than the black on everything else. I think it does kind of break up the figure a little bit. It definitely draws a little more attention, I think, than it probably should. I maybe would have liked these to be just a little bit darker, but I mean, they are definitely a style piece, and that it really is part of the original design, which I think is very, very interesting, again, because I was totally oblivious to that. And then you could see some of the detail on the leggings, and even up here on the chest and on the back, you could see some small markings there, which I think adds some uniqueness to this figure as well. In terms of articulation and everything, they've adjusted how the head is, so you can actually slide the head forward to kind of make him more of a, I don't say like a hunchback type, but he can lean forward more like he's more inquisitive. This would be more like at attention. This is probably more how he would be engaging in combat, which allows you to do some of these really stylized art poses. They've additionally taken some time into changing out some of the plastic pieces, which allow for more flexibility. This is something I also noticed in the Play Arts Kai figure, that while there's a lot of ratcheting pieces, and I love that ratcheting snap action, the reality is it's very hard to pull off a lot of poses because his arm naturally wants to hit his shoulder pads, and just like with all of the Mjolnir armors, there's a giant shoulder plate that does normally crash into his body, so you don't have that piece either. Moving down a little bit more here, you could see some of the other styles and other poses that they have, and all of the accessories that come with it. So all the different hand accessories, the machine gun, the standard assault rifle, the Magnum, and then an energy sword, which really wasn't a hot item, I think, in Halo 1, but they really want to accentuate that here. And you could see some zoom-ins of the pegs on his body to actually attach the gun on his legs. You can give him basically full loading, one on each leg, the gun on his back. They have the peg there, so you can put it on either side of his back, and the energy sword with a special hand grip that snaps in and out, so you can get some really cool poses for him as well. I'm really, really excited for this. This is definitely something from honestly, like Halo 3 or 4 is where you really start to see more of these kind of stylized things. But I love it. I think it's really, really cool. I went ahead and pre-ordered one, and I think if you're a fan of Halo, you might want to consider it too. Here's a link to the site that I got. There's a couple other sites you can pick up this item from, but I'll post a link to these guys in the description below. I don't get any money or anything by you clicking on this link, so it's not like a sponsored video or anything. It's just it's not a bad deal, and I believe they have the exact same set of photos here, just smaller, maybe, and zoomed in, maybe a couple different poses, depending on what kind of artwork that they received in terms of everything. Now, I'm a big fan of this art style. I think this is cool. I think people will probably look at this and feel it's incredibly stylized. I think it's one of those things that you're going to instantly love or hate, depending on how you look at it. I know a lot of people aren't particularly fans, that's the end of the photos there, aren't particularly fans of that original Mark V style. I think a lot of people really like some of the newer stuff better. And I think that with the release of Infinite, you're definitely going to see a return, a stylized return from 343 Industries back to something like this, which makes sense as to why they would want to release this now, because I think this is more in line of what kind of art style you could expect to see. But if you are a huge fan of the Master Chief and you like these kind of figures, I think this is actually a really, really cool one. I think all the accessories, I'll go back to that really quick and then wrap up this video. I think all the accessories it comes with all the various hand grips, quite a bit to choose from: open hand, closed hand, half closed hand. I think you're going to be able to do some really cool poses and styles and everything. Kind of like the one they did here where you see him, where'd it go? Yeah, we're here where it kind of looks like he's actually like snapping the clip back up into the gun. I think you're going to be able to do some really cool stuff like that. So I'll post a link to this original blog post and to this particular vendor in the description below. And I'll go ahead and throw in the this one too in case you want to read all about Mark V armor, because it's very, very interesting. There's actually quite a bit of history behind the Mark V armor, but I won't get into it now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.